this episode of the Growth Catalyst podcast, I meet with Kirsty Hulse. Kirsty doesn't really need much in the way of introduction. You've probably heard of her or received some of her training. She talks confidence. She delivers very impactful confidence training. Kirsty explains why it matters, about how it impacts pay progression, and she's on a mission to help people, actually especially marginalised groups, to just take up that space. She's an expert and she's really proud of that and she owns it. But she will help you understand how to influence, how to communicate to get a yes. Her takeaways to leaders are simplify. Kind of rip up the norms, rip up the playbooks, the big long pitch decks and documentation, and just try and nail down what's the one outcome that you're trying to achieve. So just speak before you write, and upskill teams. So it's a really interesting episode and I hope you enjoy. So today I am joined by the wonderful Kirsty Hulse. Kirsty is trainer, author, CEO of Raw, the brains behind Confidence Live, that amazing conference. So Kirsty, thank you so much for taking some time with me today.
Thank you so much. It's nice to chat to you.
Yeah, me too. So we're going to focus on confidence and confidence training, and why it's really important. But before we sort of get into that, can you give us a brief introduction of yourself and your background?
I always, whenever someone says, "Can you give an introduction of your background?" I have this like existential dread, because it is not very brief. But I will, I will. So my background was in marketing. So I founded a marketing agency in 2014. That grew and scaled pretty quickly. And our biggest, we had people working all over the world. We had big clients. We had Virgin Atlantic, Avis, IBM. And as I was growing that business, I realized that so much of what we have to do in the workplace, communicate, sell ourselves, present, have difficult conversations, pitch to clients, it's a skill that we don't learn. And it's perhaps the most important thing for career and business success. So I started learning loads about it and what it is that makes some people naturally confident, or why do some people have gravitas and charisma? Why do other people struggle with it? And I accidentally and naturally kind of fell into people asking me to help them and their teams with confidence. And that was in 2017, and I've kind of been doing it ever since. So at this point, Colette, I've probably trained about 100,000 people, maybe more, to be confident, whatever that means, in different teams, different dynamics. I've helped leaders build confident teams. So that is a whistle-stop tour, I guess, of my background.
Wow, thank you. So what is your area of expertise then?
I honestly think my main thing that I really know an eye-wateringly amount about is influence, and how you can get people to do stuff that you want them to do. And that obviously has huge applications, whether you're a leader and you want your team to perform a bit differently, whether you work in sales and you want to make money, whether you're a business owner and you want to grow your business, whether you work in a role, any role, and you have to get budget or senior stakeholder engagement. I'm fantastically good at knowing how to get people to sit up and listen to your message, and how to get people to really respond to what you do, and ultimately so you can get what you want. I often joke, like, I know so much about communication, it's borderline manipulative.
Love it. So you've talked about going from having a very successful agency to kind of doing lots of research and kind of understanding more about communications because you're seeing the challenges, and then obviously sort of throwing yourself into that. Can you kind of identify really what drew you to that?
So I wasn't drawn to it, it was drawn to me. And I guess what I mean when I say that is I never went, "Oh, I'm going to sell confidence training or I'm going to consult with businesses on their leadership strategy. I never did that. What happened was I was just doing me, just following my curiosity, being interested in certain things. And as a result, I got one company say, "Hey, you seem to really kind of get this like confidence communication thing. Can you train our teams?" And then I said, "Yes." And then it just kind of went from there. So I was never drawn to it from any kind of business perspective in terms of I never was like, this is going to be my new career. I was just interested. I was just interested in what it is that makes some collaborations successful and some individuals successful and others feel less so. And so I was just indulging my own curiosity, and I think when you do that often, and especially if you're doing it publicly, people respond to it. And then suddenly, honestly, before I knew it, I had clients and contracts, and I've never looked back since. But it definitely wasn't a I am going to do this now. It was more, you're gonna do this now.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, why do you love what you do?
Mm. The first thing that came into my head was because 'cause I'm good at it. So it's nice to do
It's
something.
confidence.
My expertise is so deep that at this point now I know that I'm not gonna fail. That's a lovely gift to have given myself, that level of craft and expertise. And also because I know the impact it has. Because I'm not someone who is naturally confident, certainly not internally. And I'm not someone who was like poised or a clear communicator. I really had to learn it all myself. And I think as I found I was learning how to have gravitas or be able to really showcase my knowledge, I I really see the impact that can have on people. I mean, there is a direct correlation between an individual's self-esteem and their wage. And that's been well evidenced. And I think for me, I get out of bed to help people like me, people from marginalized groups, to take up space.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So it started, maybe accidentally, with the purpose being your own, how to learn to communicate better, differently, to get what you wanted. So it really has started at home and it evolved from there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, and these conversations that I have with these, incredible founders, CEOs, people that are sort of starting amazing businesses, that seems to be a similarity with every single conversation. There was a personal need, a personal burning requirement, and you've gone off and created something fantastic out of it.
That's interesting because I really pushed against that for a while. I think I'd internalized that I like had to be strategic or I had to try harder. I think because I'd been fortunate in that this transition into a career I genuinely love was fairly effortless. I think because of that, I didn't think it was right, or I think I thought things had to be hard, things had to be difficult. And it's only recently, the past 6 months or so, I've kind of gone, I'm really just going to go with the flow of this. And if this is what I can do for the world, then that's what I will do. And I'll stop fighting it and trying to do other things and trying to make things difficult.
The irony, so that you've got confidence in the confidence now.
There. I think it's an ongoing process, but yeah, we're getting there.
Brilliant. Okay, so core skills. So, what are your core skills and those areas of knowledge that you're really excelling in now?
Yeah, so again, for me, I just know, honestly, I know any business or any team, I can go into it and help their people uh get more of what they want. Like if I was to really distill it down, I really know for a wide range of contexts the specific steps you need to take, the toolkits, the frameworks that an individual will need to do to become a phenomenally influential contributor to grow a business or to be a powerful employee, whatever the context. Um, and I think there'll be different applications for different things. But I think, yeah, if I was to boil it down to like the core skill, it's what is it if you're trying to achieve something that involves getting a yes from other people, I know how to do that.
Okay, so that's not an instinctive thing. You've got tools, frameworks, playbooks.
Yes, now I do. Yeah, now I have tools, frameworks, and playbooks. And at this point, like I honestly would dread to think how many hours of training I've done, tens of thousands. And it really, am I allowed to swear on your podcast?
Of course.
Okay. It really fucking accumulates. Like, right. I, re- you just, and often I think that I'm working, but the nature of my work is I'm also learning. I
Yeah.
just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
time and I just absorb information. And I've just found myself now, like, I just know stuff and I couldn't even really tell you now where I know it from. I've just learned experience is valuable. Who knew?
So the 10,000 hours really is true. To become an expert in something, you need to apply or invest 10,000 hours in that. And you've
Yeah,
far exceeded that.
sure, I've done that. Yeah.
Okay, so what are the hard to do things? So if they're not solved, you can succeed or fail for you.
Yeah. I think the hardest thing, I think maybe the hardest thing I teach perhaps might be helpful is the most important thing. And most of the work that I do is I go into teams and I help them have more compelling messages. And that can be on Instagram, on LinkedIn, in presentations and board meetings. The the theory underneath it remains the same. And most businesses are very poor at this because most companies will say things like, we're committed delivering customer excellence. Doesn't mean anything. Literally doesn't mean anything. What does that mean? But most business and even companies who are like, we're creatives, we're storytellers, we think about consumers, we'll do this. Will talk about themselves and their work and their products and their brands in a way that is so phenomenally abstract. It lacks depth, it lacks meaning, it leaves your audience cold, whatever your audience is. And people wonder why they don't like presenting. It's because your presentations are boring. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because the way corporates have internalized what professional communication is the antithesis of what humans need to be able to positively respond to something.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, at Soccer, we're sort of an OKR framework. Some of the underlying tech is the OKR framework, and you quite often see it that the moonshot, that goal is it's not tangible. So you don't then understand what those stepping stones are to achieve what that actual tangible goal is. So it's a very similar challenge, right?
We will be, a best in market challenger brand, for
Yeah.
example, something like that, I imagine.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, see a lot of that. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so that completely underpins that. And are there any misconceptions that people have about what you do?
nice question. If they do, I don't think I know them.
Okay.
Um, are there any no, I actually think, Colette, that people know what I do better than I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and again, I think that's the nature of my work. And I think, again, a mistake that companies make. I'm not going to tell someone how I'll work with them. They're going to tell me. I'm not
Yeah.
going to
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go I see this all the time. A business will try and win a contract, for example, and they'll go in and they'll be like, "This is our unique methodology. This is how we work." Okay, that could be really cool, but what about this other person? Like, what do they need? Like, how do they want to work? What's their process? And so, yes, I don't think people do have misconceptions about my work because if they have connected me with something, there will be a truth in that. And I think I don't know, I trust my audience and I trust my customers to utilize me well, if that makes sense.
Okay. So it sounds like you're eminently flexible.
totally flexible.
Okay.
Yeah. Like really, really, and again, because I have a lot of knowledge, it's very easy for me, and I guess the way my brain works is I'm really good at complexity, and I'm very good at being flexible. I'm really agile, and if you try and put me in a structure, that's when I do my worst work. If you try and go, okay, let's put you in this structure, let's put you in this framework, that's when I don't show up well. When I show up well is when maybe there's a goal that you're wanting to achieve, and I'm given flexibility to deliver that in the way that I will be able to know what's right. And I believe so much in intuitive wisdom and intelligence. And again, businesses don't do that. They don't do that. They're too rational. And so as a result, we've lost a lot of our ability to go, I think this just feels like the right decision, and to experiment and test from that place.
Okay, so that makes sense. So I have businesses lost that trust because it's hard to measure?
Yeah, because it's hard to measure, but I think more than that, oh, I don't want to give anyone who's listening to this an existential crisis, but why not? I guess it's why we're here. A lot of workplaces, corporate cultures, as we know them today, they came about in 1950s post-war II America, and they were built. Those structures were built on two things: military hierarchy and military strategy, and what it meant to be a man at that time. And so everyone, as we invented this, right, as we were like, right, let's start getting into offices, it was the culture at the time was you couldn't have emotions, you had to be rational, you had to be serious, you had to be strategic. Language like campaign, strategy, tactics, that's military language. And I think we just live in the hangover of that,
Totally.
where if it's not serious or informational or rational, we don't think it's valid.
Yeah.
But the beautiful irony is humans make decisions emotionally. We make emotional decisions. Um, but we don't seem to allow any of that really in corporate environments, because we've got stuff that in order to be taken seriously, and in order to be professional, everything has to be um like considered and proven. But I know you've written a business case that made a lot of financial sense or made a lot of mathematical sense, and somebody just didn't want to do it. What do you do then? When
Yeah.
the information or the numbers no longer stack up, how do you influence people then? You have to go back to your humanity.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I've been learning about this year was whilst writing my book is boarding school syndrome. So most of the sort of the industries and society are led, and still it's to slightly lesser degree, are led by people that have gone to boarding school and that have been indoctrinated and institutionalized from a very early age. So we just continue to just push this message forward, this same way of working forward, even though it's not working.
11% of senior roles, people who went to state school.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
That's why,
fascinating.
yeah, it's really, really winds me up.
Yeah.
Really makes me
Yeah,
mad.
absolutely. It's got the play the field has to be leveled. And
Mhm.
I think that's the beauty of the sort of changing work environments, the different generations, it's multi-generation now where we've all got to learn off of each other.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a fantastic business, I will always say in any of my training, like a fantastic business will always use a combination of data and story, and data and emotion. You gotta use both. You have to use both. But businesses are consumed with data to the point where we forget that, for example, if I said to you, oh, performance is it's up 10% year on year. Like, you're not hearing a positive there. But if I go, okay, so performance, it's up 10% year on year. Like, we forget that the numbers are contextualized through us, through our humanity. The
Yeah.
numbers on their own have a lot of more flex than we would ever imagine. Yeah.
So, we're living in an ever-changing, a fast-changing world, right?
Oh, we not noticed. Don't know what you mean, actually. Don't know what you're talking about.
Politically, economically, all sorts. So, just even inside of industry, technology is just changing so rapidly. It feels like every hour, let alone every day, every week. So what are the sort of current market realities? What are the pressing challenges that you're seeing right now, either for yourself or for your clients?
Yeah, I guess the current market reality, and this kind of connects to what I was just talking about. I am gloriously, touch wood, busier than I ever have been. And it's because, and about 7 years ago, I wrote a post about historically, there has been an old, archaic idea that the rational, logical qualities are the qualities of man. Men are good at science, men are good at maths, and the more emotional, artistic qualities were the qualities of women. That's an old thing that you kind of grow up with. Women are the emotional ones, the caregivers, the support providers. Women are the ones who will make sure everyone's okay in the office and all of that stuff, like ancient legacy ideas. And years and years and years ago, I was like, look, we're moving increasingly into a world of automation. So unless we change that fundamental belief, welcome to the world of woman. Because if we're saying that men are the logical, rational, considered ones, robots can do that now. The only thing that can't yet be done by AI is, robots can't hug. Robots don't give a shit about your day. And so I think for businesses, in order to stay relevant, we're really going to have to unlearn some of this stuff about rationality. If people think that it's their job to process, organize, and rationalize data, that's not a very safe role or a safe career. Individuals really have to start skilling themselves in communication, confidence, empathy, all of these skills, because what were historically considered soft skills are the hard specialisms of the future, or of now, actually, not even the future anymore.
Absolutely. Okay, so if you had 10, 15 minutes with a CEO, with a leader, obviously this is the Growth Catalyst podcast, what piece of advice could you give them, ask them to think about, reframe, invest in, go away and do immediately? Have you got some good advice that you could share today?
Yeah, I think the most powerful thing that a leader can do to radically change their team's success is to completely rip up the rule book on how their team present. Every single business, and I do this day in, day out, I go into teams and I help them present better. I have never, and I would love a business to prove otherwise, I've never seen a business that are good at presenting, because what businesses do is they create dense, complex, information-heavy slides with titles that say project overview and a graph and some text, and they wonder why their audience are sitting there bored.
Have
Humans
you been
need
hacking into my laptop?
everyone's got literally everyone does this. And I did it for years as well. But humans need story. Like, stories have been shown time and time again. A salesperson who tells stories makes 220% more money than someone who doesn't. Stories trigger a buyer's brain to take action. Stories are memorable. And when I talk about stories, I mean meaningfully and intentionally revealing some of yourself. Like, we don't have to be like sharing our life history. It could be a case study, it could be something small. But when we learn to shift our internal or external business communication away from solely data and stories and data, that's actually when companies will start having significant impact. And you'll see it on a company's social media presence. You'll see it in their marketing. You will see it in their sales teams. You would see it in their pitch teams. You'd see it in their leadership. And if I could teach everyone how to no, I was just about to say if I could teach everyone to tell stories, but that's not what I mean, because we know how to tell stories. We're doing it right now.
Yeah.
And that's what humans do. If I could convince everyone to rip up the rule book and start again on what it means to be a serious, competent, capable professional, workplaces would be so much more efficient. So
Yeah.
that is the rant I would go on to a CEO. As you can probably imagine, Colette, it's a tricky shift because every company pretty much is playing this same dance. Every business is doing the same dance of presenting like this. So we're all kind of in on this thing that this isn't maybe the most interesting or engaging way for us to disseminate and communicate our work, but everybody else is doing it. So we just have to kind of do it. Otherwise, you risk looking like a weirdo.
Yeah.
So that's my current thing that I'm doing a lot of.
So you're saying try and make yourself relatable.
No, because I think no, yeah, yes, but I think the moment someone goes right, I need to make myself relatable. I mean, that's terrifying. That's if I said you all collect, make yourself relatable. Like what? What are you gonna do? Like,
Fair
so
point. Okay.
that's difficult. That's really difficult. So it's not about trying to make yourself relatable as such. It's about just asking yourself a couple of simple questions. What am I trying to convey? Do I have any incidents from my life or career that convey that message? And then you share those. And that's kind of the simple-ish framework. If you're trying to prove to a potential client that you're a really good company, don't go, we're committed to delivering customer excellence. Go, on the way here, one of the team's vans broke down on the M6. And so we all drove to try and get them because we needed to make sure we got to this meeting on time. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's not about, I guess, trying to be relatable because we're all
Yeah.
relatable. It's just about moving away from telling people about your strategy or your business and proving it and showing it through example. You know, we use the word story. The word story can maybe be a bit loaded. Maybe let's just change it to give me some examples. Show your workings.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I like that. Yeah, I do like that because actually, as a non-creative person, and I know we're all able to unlock our creativity with given the right environment, time, framework, tools, etc. Um, I am really quite scared of the word story. Whenever my son used to say to me, "Oh, Mum, make up a story," I would just go cold and have sort of sweaty palms because I got an instant freeze. I can't do that. My brain can't operate like that. But then if you were to give me some items, there's a soldier, there's a piece of Lego, there's a something, I can make up a story about those items. So actually it does make sense. And the word story is a little bit scary for some people like me.
Thank you for sharing with me that story about your son. There is no such thing as an uncreative, non-storytelling human. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist.
Case in point.
It's just when you say like, "Tell me a story," we're like, "Oh my, what do you mean?"
Yeah.
But so yeah, I think the language can be terrifying. You know, it feels like it's I don't know, like we all have to be like, I was, like TED Talks, like S can do this in a very dramatic kind of way. We have to be like, oh, I was held at gunpoint in Bolivia when I was 12. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. Unless you do have that story, I would love to hear it. But it's just about, yeah, give some examples, which is exactly what you just did intuitively. And so I often, I'll talk about this in terms of, have you ever seen Michelangelo's David, the statue?
Not in real life, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so it's in Florence, and I went to
Oh,
Florence, and I
actually
just
I have. Yes, I have. Sorry.
yeah, yeah. So I had convinced myself that it would be boring. Like I did history of art at uni, and so I was like, I think I said, seen one statue, seen them all. I was like an absolute philistine. But then I saw it, and I was absolutely, genuinely awestruck by it. I thought it was so mesmerizing. And so I started reading a lot about it. And there's this famous legend that when it was unveiled, the Pope said to Michelangelo, how on earth did you make that from this big hunk of marble? And Michelangelo was like, I just removed everything that wasn't David. So I don't really teach storytelling. I just remove everything that isn't David
Wow.
because we tell stories. We do it day in, day out. We just have these stupid, old, internalized rules that in order to be taken seriously, we have to suddenly use jargon and weird language and say things like corporate governance in order to be taken seriously. It's nonsense. I'm over it, Colette. I'm bored. I'm done.
Total synergy with you there, Kirsty.
I'll come back to this later.
Okay, so in order to help the CEOs that we're talking to, what questions could those leaders be asking of their teams?
I have a spreadsheet, and on the spreadsheet, I have. So if I've told some stories on this podcast, the stories I tell come from a spreadsheet. That Michelangelo story that came from me sitting in front of a spreadsheet. So the first thing I would do is understand that telling interesting narratives or stories or examples or case studies or whatever we want to call them that feels most accessible requires time. It doesn't just, you don't just whip out this amazing story. You do have to think about it. And I can understand, when your lad said, Mum, tell me a story, you were like, oh, the cat was on the mat because there's that pressure. But that's not what I do. What I do is I sit down before any meeting, before any presentation, before any email I send, before any LinkedIn post, and I ask myself, what am I trying to say? Really, what am I trying to say? Normally for me, it comes down to some version of I'm an expert. And that's probably true for other businesses as well. Like, really, what are you trying to say in your marketing? Really, what are you trying to say on your website? Like, what is the thing you're really trying to get people to know? What's the message you're trying to land? Understand that in its rawest, purest form, not that your category leading market, that maybe it could be something as like, we're better than the competition. Like, we really actually care about our customers. Like, actually, in the simplest, plainest, most bare form, what is it that you want people to know? And then you sit down as a team or on your own with a spreadsheet and you take an hour writing every single moment you can think about that illustrates that your company, your leadership, you as an individual lives by that. And then you never have to say, we drive customer excellence. You just tell people the story that proves it.
Yeah.
People know what I do without me ever really telling them because I don't need to tell them because I tell them stories that prove it.
Brilliant. They've got sweaty palms again, sort of thinking about my leadership positions inside of agencies and going through
Oh, I used to say,
values.
and
What
it's
are
so
values?
right. It's so much easier for me, obviously, because I'm on the outside. I don't have the politics. I don't have the slide templates that hem people in. I don't have the, I can come in as this like motivational speaking wizard and just like wave my little. So it's so much easier for me because the thing that stops us from doing this isn't that we don't know how to do it. It's that our systems tell us we shouldn't.
So what's the question that leaders should be asking of their teams? Is just
What's the
what is it you're
one
trying
thing?
to achieve?
What's the one thing you're trying to achieve? And ask that constantly. What's the thing you're trying to achieve with this meeting, with this slide, with this post, with this strategy? What's the one thing? What's the thing? And what will normally happen, people will say something really clear and articulate and articulate that they haven't written. The way we write and the way we speak is fundamentally different. So we mess ourselves up with that. And then ask someone that one question, help people get that real clarity, and then go, okay, can we prove that? If so, what have we done that shows this? And then you just slowly start to build that culture of evidence and that culture of proof and that culture of storytelling and that culture of showing you're working. And if there's one person in a company that gets this and that can do it, if they start to model it, everybody else follows suit.
That's great. That's very clear. And actually really quite obvious when you sit and think about it,
Yeah,
but obviously not easy.
and I think the biggest problem we have is we tend to sit at our laptops, whereas that's not necessarily the best place to do this. You want to be doing it on a notepad and pen away from technology. You want to be staring out the window. We don't most people, I guess, who are listening to this podcast are thought workers, knowledge workers,
Yeah.
but we never create space for our thoughts or our knowledge. So I did stand up for years, and a stand up comic would never write jokes at a laptop. That's not how you're funny. You write jokes with a bunch of people in a room with some pens and paper. And I think we freak ourselves out. If anybody listening to this ever has to present, my guess is what you probably do is you go, right, I've got to write this presentation. You open your slides, you maybe open your template, and you go from there. It's not the best way. The best way to do it is to start by do you feel exposed? Like, am I saying?
I feel so heard, so seen.
Yeah. Best thing to do is take a step back, go, what's my one message? What are the main points? How am I going to prove that I've actually done this, that I can stand by this, that I have integrity? And then you maybe write it on some post-its, map it all out, use your natural language. Because if you start writing, you'll write odd things. You'll write things that you would literally never say in the real world. But if you speak it out first, and you write what you speak, then your presentations will be clearer, easier to deliver, and more you, ultimately.
Yeah, makes complete sense. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, so just want to sort of peep over the horizon the next 12 months. Nobody's got a crystal ball. I sort of do this every time. Nobody can actually predict the future, but have you got any observations or any sort of nuggets of things that you've been thinking about that whilst you're looking ahead over the next 12 months that our listeners could be thinking about or preparing for?
I think the most interesting thing for me as an individual is agentic AI and agents. I think obviously when we look at the horizon, it's hard to see past the immediate, perhaps biggest technological revolution that humans have ever existed. Um, so I think for me, I think the most important thing is I really want to encourage, if not already, every business to really be upskilling their team on AI. And I don't mean chatting to ChatGPT. I mean actually developing workflows, automated processes, having trained agents, because your competitors absolutely do and will. And it will just, the quality of what you can deliver will just start, it will just get harder, I think, to keep pace.
Yeah.
Because the great thing about the world we're increasingly living in is certain administrative tasks have suddenly got so much easier. And so it's about making sure that you're not, I don't like to use the language falling behind, it's a bit dramatic, but just to make sure that you maintain the same speed
Yeah.
as what people are doing things as. And it's, my partner runs an AI school. He lives and breathes this stuff. And even for me, observing him and watching what he's doing, it's gone so fast from even where he started out a year ago to where we are now. It's a completely different landscape. And it can be very exciting and very liberating, especially if you're like me and maybe you and perhaps don't have naturally organized, structured ways of thinking. It can be so fantastic and helpful. So I think it's to not be afraid, to be excited, to enjoy the process, and just make sure either you as a leader or you've got people in your team who are really getting really good at this, because the
Yeah.
stuff you can do now is wild.
Yeah, I completely echo that. And even as females, of the stats I'm reading, if you're over 40, then you're probably falling dramatically behind on AI use. Just quite scary. And again, at Zocchi with our clients, I think just to underpin that, having policy and stop making the use of AI a bit of a dirty secret. We've seen a lot of that. It's here. It exists. Like you say, in the last 12 months, it's come on leaps and bounds. So just work out how to get the best of it and can't just take your head out of the sand if you have.
Yeah, and again, this is tricky for corporates, like slow moving bigger businesses. This is very difficult, really difficult, So I think, we need policy, we need to understand what our rules are around it, and at the same time know that we're all in this together and we're figuring out as we go, and nobody knows, nobody's perfect at this yet, and there's going to be bumbles and mistakes. And I think this is a time more than ever for messy experimentation.
Totally. Completely agree. And I think the beauty of it is that smaller businesses have now got access to that same set of data advantage that bigger businesses have had previously. So
Yep.
it's boundless opportunity should you approach it in the right way. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's just a lot of fear. Like with anything, new stuff, change is always met with resistance and fear. Very famously, there's a really famous quote that I think about all the time, which is a female passenger's body will simply melt at speeds of over 50 miles an hour. That was a genuinely held belief at the invention of trains. People actually thought, actually, that if a woman's body went over 50 miles an hour, we would simply melt. Any
My age,
technology.
that's probably true, actually.
Like, yeah, any technology throughout all of human history has been met with, "No, this won't work, this won't stick, this won't,"
Yeah,
all the time. So I
yeah.
guess it's just knowing that and trying to know that that's what humans do and go, "Okay, how can I, ethically, in a way that feels good to me, engage with this?"
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. Um, yeah, it's been you've given me loads to think about today, I think in a good way.
Yeah, sorry. Have I given you some dread?
You've given me yeah, I'm back into crisis mode. No, genuinely thinking about just that simple output. Of course. Why do we forget that so easily? It's yeah,
Mm.
absolutely brilliant. So, I asked my guests for an anecdote. Obviously, written my book as well about bad leadership behaviour, and I try really hard not to um, name and shame. This is not about
Mhm.
naming and shaming. We're just trying to help people away from their bad behaviour. So when I'm speaking to people, it's usually really easy for someone to go, "Oh yeah, God, there was this terrible person who did this terrible thing, and that I was ended up with that experience." The other side of that coin is actually I had an amazing leader that did this one thing that completely just changed the shape of my future, my professional future, or my life. Have you got one of those anecdotes that springs to mind?
There is an individual that springs to mind, and it was a client of mine, and it wasn't a lead well, she was a leader, and it was a client of mine when I was very early in my career, and I was working in digital marketing, and I didn't know anything, like you don't when you're early in your career, and she was a marketing PhD. And for some reason, she kinda took me under her wing and she terrified me. She was, like, really firm and quite abrupt and quite short. I think from memory she was Russian, I think, and she was just really, like, crisp and curt in her delivery, and I remember when I first met her, I found her terrifying, but she taught me so much about strategy and about how to think consultatively, and I couldn't even tell you why. She was just patient she was like, "You clearly don't know anything about being actually strategic. I'm gonna sit you down and I'm gonna show you what I need you to do." And I remember the more senior people in the agency at that time were kind of like rolling their eyes, being like, "We're the agency. You don't tell us how to be strategic." But I was like, "This is gold." Like a senior marketing brand leader is telling us exactly how to develop our strategies. And I've done that. I use what she taught me ever since. And that must have been going on 18 years ago now. And she was mean and like fair. And this is what it was that I really respected about her. She had phenomenally high standards. She had phenomenally high standards of herself, of the people around her, but she didn't leave you to flounder. Like, it wasn't like she had high standards, and if you weren't up there, she would pull you up. And I think if you're willing to learn, which fortunately I've always been willing to learn, I was like, "Oh, take me up, like, take me on this raft."
Yeah.
So I think I think in modern cultures, leaders with very high standards can sometimes be labeled toxic, inverted commas. Hate that. I really like working with pace setting, fast, high standard leaders, providing that they're like, okay, this is what you need to do. I'm bringing you with me. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I always remember that.
It's amazing. So she invested her time in you.
Yes. Like Rich, and she was our client. She just loved it, I think. And I think it annoyed her how not good at it we were. I think it annoyed her. So she was like, I've got to fix this. I've got to fix it. Yeah, and I think I'll always remember how much I learned from her. Like
Yeah.
how much I learned.
That screams volumes, right? So yeah, as the agency, you're supposed to be the professional, the knowledge, the everything. And actually, if she is prepared to invest all of her expertise in the agency and yourself, that screams volumes about what an amazing person she must be.
I think she just happened to be phenomenal and had spent her life low key frustrated that other people weren't at her level. I think she was just constantly like, I'll teach you, fine, I'll show you.
But you're a willing pair of ears.
I was.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. Thanks so much for sharing. Is there anything else that I should have asked you that you would like to have said today?
No. No, I mean, I really think I said many things today, but I said big things. I said, I kind of feel like I went on a philosophical rant that I hopefully your listeners took something away from.
Absolutely. There's loads of gold in this particular episode. I can feel it already. That was a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sparing some time and having a chat to me. It's always lovely to catch up with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Colette.
Thanks. Well, I'll speak to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.